Legendary Hollywood actress Marilyn Monroe was no stranger to high-profile romances during her time in the spotlight. Newly uncovered rare photos offer a glimpse into the icon's string of marriages that captivated America for generations. Hollywood icon Marilyn Monroe got married for the first time in 1942 to her high school sweetheart James Dougherty. They met while she was living with a family friend in Los Angeles and got married right after her 16th birthday. The two had been dating for only a few months at the time. In 1943, a 16-year-old Norma Jean Dougherty got married to Jim Dougherty, who was 20, to avoid returning to foster care with a mother who suffered from psychiatric problems. The couple enjoyed a romantic honeymoon on a lake in Ventura County. After the wedding, they moved into an apartment in Sherman Oaks. In 1944, the newlyweds Jim and Norma Dougherty moved to Catalina Island, where Jim was assigned to the Merchant Marines base. Monroe was a housewife at the time, but the couple would later divorce in 1946. Monroe pursued her career in Hollywood while Dougherty was serving overseas. Actress and sex symbol Marilyn Monroe tied the knot with professional baseball player Joe DiMaggio in 1954 at San Francisco's City Hall. This was Monroe's second marriage, and marked a new chapter in her highly successful acting career. Monroe and DiMaggio share a kiss in the judges' chambers on their wedding day, January 14, 1954. In 1954, Marilyn Monroe got married at San Francisco City Hall. The couple wanted to keep it low-key, but after Monroe mentioned it to someone at her studio, the press and fans crowded the ceremony. Her comments were reportedly leaked. 117 characters. Monroe and DiMaggio wed in 1954 after 2 years of dating. Both had been through previous divorces. DiMaggio's first wife, Dorothy Arnold, cited cruel indifference in her divorce papers. In 1954, the famous couple Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio honeymooned in Japan. They were spotted at the airport, and it turns out the trip was planned around a pre-arranged work trip for DiMaggio. In 1954, Marilyn Monroe met retired baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. Monroe was hesitant to meet him, but they started a tumultuous, loving relationship. In 1954, Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio got married. Monroe's film career was skyrocketing, and DiMaggio was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame the following year. The glamorous couple's union propelled both of their already successful careers even further. In 1954, Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio got married and split their time between California and New York. They rented a home in Hollywood Hills but also spent a lot of time in NYC where DiMaggio was beloved. They were seen enjoying a night out at El Morocco. In 1954, movie star Marilyn Monroe's career was booming during her marriage to Joe DiMaggio. She starred in her most famous film, The 7-Year Itch, and posed for her iconic subway great photo. In 1954, DiMaggio visited Monroe on the set of River of No Return in Canada, as seen here. In 1954, the marriage between Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio was in trouble due to DiMaggio's controlling behavior and disapproval of Monroe's sexy image in her career. Despite being in love, their relationship was struggling. In 1954, Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio's marriage ended after only 274 days. Monroe cited mental cruelty as her reason for filing. In 1954, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio struggled to move on from his divorce with Marilyn Monroe. He kicked in the wrong door of a house, believing she was inside with another man. This scandal, known as the Wrong Door Raid, had consequences for DiMaggio. In 1954, Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio divorced but remained friends. Joe sent flowers to Marilyn's grave weekly until his death in 1999. Marilyn Monroe announces her plan to marry playwright Arthur Miller in a 1956 press conference. The couple had a public affair and Miller divorced his first wife in order to marry Monroe. He had to move to Nevada to establish residency for the divorce. In 1956, Marilyn Monroe got married for the third time to playwright Arthur Miller, just a year after her divorce from Joe DiMaggio. The couple tied the knot in a small ceremony at Miller's agent's home in Westchester, New York. In 1956, Marilyn Monroe and playwright Arthur Miller tied the knot. The two first met on set in 1951 and began a romance after Monroe's divorce. Miller left his wife for the blonde icon, and the couple remained married until 1961. The media and public alike were shocked by the union of Hollywood's biggest sex symbol and the pensive intellectual. In 1956, actress Marilyn Monroe and playwright Arthur Miller spent their honeymoon on Miller's farm in Connecticut. They were spotted enjoying a picnic and taking scenic drives through the countryside. Cute. Monroe and Miller were caught on camera sharing a kiss before departing for their honeymoon in 1956. Monroe seemed hesitant, only kissing Miller after he gave the okay. Reporters took note of her reserved behavior. In 1956, newlyweds Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller rented out the tranquil Englefield Green in the English countryside. It was part of their honeymoon, while Monroe filmed The Prince and the Showgirl. A peaceful retreat for the famous couple during a busy time. A newlywed couple in 1956 spent their first few months of marriage in London. They were photographed on rented bikes in Windsor Park. Monroe and Miller attend an event in London at Leicester Square in 1956. In 1956, Arthur Miller was called to testify in front of the House Un-American Activities Committee about his ties to Communist Party meetings. During the McCarthy era, this caused many in Hollywood to lose their careers, but Monroe stood by her husband throughout the trials. In 1956, famous playwright Arthur Miller faced a citation of contempt from the WAC committee. However, he did not face backlash from the public due to his wife's popularity. In 1956, Marilyn Monroe and her husband Arthur Miller managed to lead a private life on their farm in Connecticut, despite their fame. The couple managed to keep a low profile, which is surprising considering their level of notoriety. Marilyn Monroe suffered several miscarriages during her 5-year marriage to Arthur Miller, causing significant strain on their relationship. The actress's fertility issues were a source of stress for the couple. In 1956, playwright Arthur Miller married Marilyn Monroe, a Hollywood icon known for her beauty and fame. Despite their apparent differences, Miller believed that the inappropriateness of their relationship was a sign that they belonged together. In a 1987 interview, he reflected on his unconventional marriage to Monroe. Monroe and Miller attended the controversial premiere of Baby Doll in 1956, directed by Alia Kazan. The Catholic clergy banned the film and deemed it immoral. Monroe wears a fashionable headscarf and sunglasses as the couple head to Miller's home in Connecticut for the weekend. In 1956, Marilyn Monroe attended the premiere of her husband's play, A View from the Bridge. She was seated next to her former co-star Laurence Olivier and his wife Vivian Leigh. Miller and Monroe are photographed in Connecticut, where they are dressed casually for a day in the country. Monroe is seen cuddling with Miller's dog, Hugo, while in Connecticut. In 1959, Marilyn Monroe and her husband were departing from Idlewild Airport in New York City for her work on the film Let's Make Love. A photo captured the actress with her playwright husband, Arthur Miller, as they headed out. In 1960, Marilyn Monroe was filming Some Like It Hot in LA, and playwright Arthur Miller visited her on set 3 times. A rare photo of the couple on set shows a more serious side of the iconic actress. Monroe featured in 1961 movie The Misfits alongside Gable, Clift, and Wallach. Miller wrote the script. Here, Monroe is on set with him. In 1961, the movie The Misfits featured a mainly male cast including Clark Gable, Montgomery Clift, and Eli Wallach, with Marilyn Monroe leading as the principal actress. Thelma Ritter also played a supporting role in the film. A black-and-white group shot reveals Miller, Monroe's husband at the time, in the back of the photo. Miller and Monroe's relationship was in turmoil on the set of The Misfits in 1961. W magazine reported that their already tumultuous romance shifted from infatuation to despair, with the marriage falling apart by the time cameras rolled. Marilyn Monroe's divorce in 1961 triggered rumors of an affair with actor Yves Montand. Sadly, not long after her divorce, Monroe died of an overdose of barbiturates on August 5, 1962.